Hi everyone and welcome to Pro Tools Answers, where three Pro Tools experts discuss, demonstrate and elaborate on your Pro Tools questions put to the community in Avid's official Facebook support forum. I'm your host Dave Phillips, lecturer for Point Blank in the UK, and on today's show we're discussing a question from Ben, who asks this. Is there any way, not manually, to shift an entire section like the end of a song that's, say, 8 measures to the right? Otherwise, you have to consolidate everything, or at least select everything, remembering to expand all folders, split at the point you want to move, and then moved. It seems like there's got to be a better way. And Ben, we think there is. Now, Anders is back in the Middle East today. He's bossing the engineers at Al Jazeera around, so it's just myself and Andy. So please say hi to Andy Hagerman, Avid's curriculum manager over in Japan. And to quote another legend, all the best stuff comes from Japan. Hey, Andy.
Back to the Future. Right?
Absolutely.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. We're on the same page as usual.
There you go.
Awesome. So there's a few things to unpack in today's question, I think. As you know, it kind of highlighted as a bit of an interesting one for me because there's quite a lot to deal with in there. So it seems like Ben wants to just... It's either... If I'm reading this right, he said he wants to just select a section of song and then move it, right?
Right.
So,
right. Go ahead.
So that suggests to me just the inserting time option.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be asking one of two things. He could be asking, how do I move a section and move it without affecting other things on the timeline? And that's, there are even ways to make that even easier. Or, to basically take this section of a song and everything after that and move that, which is where insert time or moving the song starts to be a more attractive option.
Yeah, indeed. So inserting time seems to be the most appropriate solution for this specific scenario, but I think we can expand on it to show everyone how to move an entire song, sections of song as well. But also there's a complexity to this because he's talking about expanding folders and do the clips that exist inside folder tracks move as well. Which is a question that pops up every so often too. But also we can expand on that even further to talk about how clips on alternative playlists are affected as well, because all of that is still relevant too. So we'll try and package all this up in a nice little tight package and bow it up so we can deal with moving a whole bunch of stuff all at once and dealing with all of the other clips wherever they may exist in the session. So can I show a thing? I think we both have something to show today, right?
Yeah.
But start off with mine, and I hope that's okay with you all, because I've got quite a large session here that includes a couple of different things that are going to be relevant to at least somebody. So we've got clips that aren't part of any folder tracks. We've got a couple of synth tracks here. We've got some Midi stuff as well. In there too, so we've got some Midi clips that are involved in this also, and we have a whole bunch of tracks that are nested inside a drum folder, but we also have nested tracks inside that as well, in that the kick and the snare are being nested inside the drum folder. So there's clips inside a folder and there's clips inside a folder that are inside a folder. And we've also got clips down here that are on a alternative playlist. So we've got some extra lead guitar stuff there. And we've got a bass track here that has some alternative bass clips as well. So when we're talking about splitting where you want to insert some time, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that with any luck will move all together. So let's deal with Ben's question to start with. He wants to, let's say we want to insert another guitar solo around about there, right? Because we've got 2 solos in this song and we just need another one because that's important, right? Let's just say I want to extend that solo track by another 8 bars. So I'm going to select where I want to make the split. I've got the all groups selected down here so that whatever I do to one will happen to all of them, right? So let me just make my my selection again. There's my edit cursor. We can see that flashing away. Now, if we go up to time operations, we can insert time right there. And I'm going to ask it to insert 8 bars worth of stuff. And I'm going to set it to insert time on all of the rulers and all of the tracks as well, and then click apply. And that's going to shift everything over to the right.
Now, you didn't need to have the all group enabled, but that's to me that's one of the safest ways to do this kind of thing, because not only does it move all of your tracks, it also will move the markers, tick-based markers, sample-based markers. It will move your tempo changes so that if you've got tempo changes happening, so everything. It's like basically splicing tape. That's kind of the whole idea behind this. Now, what it does, just to be clear, is it takes that from the beginning of your timeline selection, so where you are right now, everything beyond that. So it's not moving a section of audio; it's moving everything from that point on the timeline later.
Everything.
So,
indeed.
With and you do have a little bit of control over here. You can choose to change the marker or the meter ruler only, which I don't think I've ever actually done that, but you can. And then you can choose, and this I will change from time to time, is you can choose whether to apply to all sample-based markers and tracks or none of them. And in the case of a music project like this, I mean, you probably want both your tick-based tracks and your sample-based tracks to move. But for example, if you're doing a post project and you want your music to move, but you don't want your dialogue to, then you would set your dialogue as a sample-based track, and then you would set all the tracks, audio, MIDI, and so on and so forth in your music. You'd set them to be tick-based tracks, and then you'd choose no from that menu, and that will do what you want it to do.
Yeah, indeed.
But there's something there, Dave, at the bottom of that window that should be in flashing neon red and green. And what is that?
It says, warning, hidden tracks will not be affected.
That's right.
So, and in this sesh, we have a couple of hidden tracks. We've got a couple of hidden MIDI tracks right there that have been committed. And I've got a DI track, a clean DI track from my Kemper. It's basically for if I wanted to do some reamping. So that's not going to be effective either.
And that's another way, by the way, that you can isolate tracks so that they aren't moved, for example, dialogue. And that's, another way that you could do the same thing with a post project is simply to hide your dialogue tracks and then insert your time and then unhide them. And that would do the same thing. But it's so important that you take a look at the bottom of that. Now, it doesn't, I think that warning is always good to keep in mind. And it's a good practice to get into, to always make sure that you're showing what you want to move. Yeah. But I have a second question. You've got a couple of folder tracks that are expanded. The folder tracks are open. What would happen to those audio tracks if those folder tracks were collapsed?
Well, you just preempted me because that's what I was going to go on to next. So if I close all those down, so I think all of my let's close my drum folder completely. Don't need those input. I think that's right. Okay, so let's do the same thing again then. Let's open up time operations window. Set a length of 8 bars. That's how much I want to insert. And let's click apply. Okay, now there's something that we can see before we jump over to the folders. We can see that the alternative playlists on my bass guitar track have also been split. And the time has been inserted on my playlists view as well. Let's go over to my folder tracks. And there we go. We can see that the time has also been inserted into my nested folders without needing to expand those. So that's right. It's one of the things that Ben mentioned, wasn't it? Needing to expand folder views to be able to make these actions work.
Now, one of the things that I do is I will very often create a giant, not a routing folder, but just a basic folder, and put like all the music or all the dialogue in there, just so that I can collapse everything. And the only thing you have to show is that one folder track to move all of that stuff. So that's yet a third way that you could manage the whole thing, is to create folders of all the stuff that you want, and then collapse it. And within the folder track, as long as the tracks within the folder tracks are being shown, then life's fine. But any hidden tracks within the folder track will not be moved.
Yeah. What about, so we showed playlist views being split, but that's with playlist views being visible. What if the playlist views aren't visible? Do they get moved as well?
So let me show you. The answer is no, but let me show it to you because I think it's important to take a look at. Okay, so here's my session, and Pro Tools is going to do what it says it does. Any track that isn't shown is not going to be affected by insert time or cut time, for that matter. So what I've got here, I'm going to go into, I've got a folder track called Vocals. And you'll see here that on my backing vocal track, the backing vocal 1, I've got a multiple playlist. It's not that second playlist is not being shown at this point. Okay. And I'm going to go one step further, and within there, I'm going to hide backing vocal 3. Okay. So I've got lead vocal 1, lead vocal 2. They're both being shown. Backing vocal 1, and it has alternate playlists on it. Backing vocal 2. There's a backing vocal 3, which I'll hear, but which isn't being shown. All right. And I'm going to collapse this. Now, if I go into, we'll just go here, pop it over here, and I'm going to insert time. And I'm going to do the same thing that Dave did. So insert time, bump, insert time, and I'll just put 1 minute on there. Great. And that you can see here that it's going to, oops, hit enter, there we go. And it's going to apply to all, again, warning, hidden tracks will not be affected. Boom. And you can see they've all moved over. And you think, great, fantastic, job done. Couple things to keep in mind. First of all, notice that the Midi didn't get affected because the beginning of the Midi note was not part of that selected area. So the Midi has a special relationship with note on information. So if you don't have the note on information, nothing will happen to that note. It won't change in any way. Although you notice here that the clip got split, but the note didn't.
That's a really good reminder.
Yeah, no, it's something to always remember to keep in mind. So I'm going to open up this, and we're going to see that if I show my backing vocal 3, it didn't move. Why? Because it wasn't being shown, because it wasn't visible. All right. But let's now go into the backing vocal 1, and you can see I've got an alternate playlist. Did that move? No. Why? Because it wasn't being shown. So if you don't see it, it's not going to move. Now, the reason why on Dave's system that it moved is only because on those tracks that had the alternate playlists, he was showing the playlist's view. So all the playlists were being shown. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense.
Okay. So if you want to do this, there's a couple things to keep in mind. So I'm going to undo this, right? And just for fun, I'm going to create an alternate playlist on vocal 2. I'll just duplicate this. Bump. Great. Fantastic. So I've got 2 tracks that have alternate playlists, but I'm not in playlist view, right? So we know that if I was to cut right here and insert time, that those unshown playlists would not be affected by what I'm going to do. So the workaround for that is hold down the Option key, which is going to do to all, and then go ahead and choose playlist, and it's going to show the playlist view of all tracks that have multiple playlists on them. And then can I collapse my vocal track? Sure. A collapsed vocal track is still seeing the tracks as being shown, right? Even because you're seeing all the tracks visual data up here in the top. So even a collapsed folder track, as long as the member tracks are being shown within there, it'll do what you want it to do. So now if I go over here, I'm going to go to time operations, insert time. One more time. I'll just add 1 minute. Boom and boom. And now this moves. And now if I open this up, you'll see that my alternate takes on my alternate playlist here have moved along with my main playlist for the simple reason that I can see them. And any playlist that I can't see is not going to move.
Very, very.
And
cool.
at that point, I could, just to get back to what I want to do, I could just hold down the Option key again, go back to waveform, and I'm back to what I had at the beginning.
Yeah. Now okay. Sorry, Andy. Go on.
And the one thing, the last thing to keep in mind is kind of an aw shucks moment, is that on instrument tracks and MIDI tracks, there is no playlist view. There are alternate playlists that you can have. You just have no playlist view. And because you have no playlist view, this particular workaround is not available for those tracks.
That's what I was about to ask.
There you go.
Actually.
Yeah.
So
you would have to go, you would basically have to take this alternate playlist and put it on a dummy track, on a dummy MIDI track. Could you do that? Yeah. Arguably, it's going to be a massive pain, but you could do that. It's just a little bit less easy to do than other things.
Well, I don't necessarily think it would be a massive pain. If you got lots and lots of playlists, then possibly, but just a few, you could create MIDI tracks for every playlist that you've got that you need to cut.
Yeah.
And then just select the playlist on each of those tracks.
Sure.
Right.
And the way you would do that is I would just go ahead and create myself a MIDI track, and it's a dummy. I'll probably get rid of it. Hold on a second. Let me undo what I just did before. Come on. Oh, it's not going to let me undo it, is it? No, because I
created a track.
Yeah, I created a track. Let me revert to saved. There we go. All right, so we're back to what I had before. Now, an easy way to work around that, obviously, is going to be then to, there's my instrument track. Took a lot of thought put into that name right there. And if you see here, this is the used playlist, Instrument 10101, which is the fourth playlist that I created in my session. So that's where you see that 4 in parentheses. And what I would do is I would go ahead, if I wanted to make sure that everything moved, I would go and create a new MIDI track. And then I would go here, and I wouldn't even worry about this. I would go to other playlists and then pop that open. And what I've done is I pulled onto this track the unused playlists from Instrument 1. Now, if you've got hundreds of tracks with multiple playlists, this could take you quite some time. But in this particular case, it's easy as pie. And what you would do then is, I'll go ahead and move this over here. Insert time. Yeah, one more time. Pop it, and now my alternate playlists have gone, but I've got this instrument track there or this MIDI track that I don't really need anymore. What'll I do? I'll go ahead and delete that track. It says creates active clips, delete, and then nope, sorry, forget what I just said. I've got to. There's one more step. I would have to change the playlist and then delete that track. So I would have to change it to that empty playlist. Again, a massive pain. It's a workflow that I usually don't have time to do. No. But you get the idea, though, right? So you would have to then go into the track. You would have to change back to the first empty playlist, and then you could safely delete that track.
So that's dealt with a lot of stuff to do with inserting time, isn't it? So
right.
We mentioned there's a couple of other things that we could also do if people are wanting to insert time at the beginning of a song, because this is all about inserting time in the middle of an existing recording. But what about giving yourself a little bit of extra time at the beginning? Now, if we stick on Andy's session, could you just flick over to the clips view on your vocal tracks? Because it looks like all of your parts begin right at the beginning of the timeline.
Yeah, so I'll pop this open. Is that what you want to see?
Yeah. So you've got clips that begin right at absolute zero, right there.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to do any kind of overdubbing, you could rely on count off.
I could,
but I think most of us we like a little bit of space, even a bar at the beginning. When we're recording. So what Andy could potentially do is flick over to on clips view, manually select everything, and then drag it all over to the right hand side. But we've got a couple of nice little options for things that we can do to just do it quickly for us. So I'm aware that there's one little thing that we're going to need to do, but if you can just hover your mouse over the red triangle next to your tempo meter, and then click and drag that to the right, that we can see one of those clips move. And what it's actually, could you show the MIDI grid as well? I think it's, if you can undo that and then show the MIDI grid, because I think that's the thing that it's actually moving, isn't it?
So what you're doing is you're seeing
show the bars and beats grid.
Yeah. There we go. Let's see, and my grid is going to be it's bars and beats right now.
Yeah.
So if you go here, you're going to see that. So here's bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, and so on and so forth up here in the ruler. And you'll see here that this basically is shifting the MIDI start time. Okay, and it's only moving that one MIDI track. Why? Because all of my other tracks here are sample based. So for that reason, and that reason primarily, I won't do this. This is not a workflow that I'm usually all that interested in, because it's far too easy for me to miss things. Now, what I could do, again, using the option key, is I could change all of my tracks, audio and MIDI tracks, into tick bass for a short time or for the rest of my session. And then at that point, they all move.
Yeah, indeed.
Right?
Now,
because they're all tick based.
Yeah, indeed. And just to remind everyone what tick bass means, is it's relating for the tick-based tracks, it's relating the clip boundaries and all of the note data to the MIDI grid, and it's locking those to the bars and beats ruler. So when you move the bars and beats ruler, all of those relative events essentially get moved with them. If you're locking stuff to the sample grid, making the tracks sample based, that particular grid doesn't move. It's only the MIDI, the bars and beats grid, that's moving. So the sample-based stuff doesn't move with it. Hence why you need to flick over to ticks-based.
So let me show the way that I would do it. And by the way, could you do it the way that we just did? Sure. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is, again, it's a couple extra steps. I'm going to go back to insert time, because it really does do everything that I need it to do. So right now I've got tick-based tracks and I've got sample-based tracks, both together. Now remember, if you really want to have your if you move your song start, okay, let me show the tempo, and we'll show the grids again. The bars and beats grid. Here we go. Again, remember, if you want absolutely everything to move, you have to make sure your folder tracks are switched over, your master faders, your auxiliary input tracks. You want those to be tick-based too, so that your automation will move at the same time that your clips do. Right, so it can be kind of a nightmare. So for me, you can see here that I'm starting at, my arrangement here starts at bar 1. Right, Dave, how much time do you want before?
About a week.
Got it.
Just 2 bars would be fine.
That's, by the way, that's what I typically will do that as well, just because that's your normal count off. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead here, I park it right at the beginning, no problem. I'm going to go here back to time operations, insert time, and I'll change my scale here from minutes and seconds to bars and beats, and you're going to see here that the scale here, my time operations. And you said what?
You said 2 bars.
2 bars. Okay. 2 bars, bump, and I'm going to move everything, bump, and it does. Now, there's only one thing that I don't like, and some people don't have a problem with this. I do, is that I've shifted all of my stuff, but my bars and beats are still where they were. So the song is now starting at bar 3, which is kind of a mathematical challenge that I'm not willing to rise to.
I think it would be a bit of a pain if you're also going to be notating, converting to
score,
score.
Yeah,
maybe?
or talking to musicians. Yeah. So what I'll do is, the beginning of our song has now moved over to bar 3. So I'm going to go to bar 3, bump. I'm going to go back to time operations, move song start. and it's going to be at 4 seconds. Why 4 seconds? Because that happens to be where I'm parked because I'm dealing with
You're in minutes and seconds.
The tempo, yeah. So I'm going to do that. Renumber song start to 1. Boink. Apply this here. Boom. And now -1, 0, and this is now bar 1. And that does the job for me.
Yeah, very nice and easy. It's very, very, very neat.
Now there is one advantage, right, to just dragging the red triangle is that bar 1 stays bar 1, right? But all things being equal, usually what I'll do is I'll insert time so that I don't miss any of my sample-based tracks, and then I'll reestablish what is bar 1.
Yeah, you're quickly going to figure out if you've missed any sample-based tracks, though, right?
No, God, no. Don't put a big disclaimer. You usually find that out about 5 minutes before you have to do your final bounce. You're like, what's going on with that background vocal number 47? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fab. So there's a number of ways that you can insert time and move things around. And as Ben asks, not doing it manually. Manually suggests that you've got to make the selections, then click and drag and move them. Nothing's really automatic. You still have to be there, right? So you've got to select something or press something. But there's a couple of ways for you guys to be able to move your timeline around, inserting time, stuff like that. Some really
if I can add just one other thing, and this is something that people I think sometimes overlook about folder tracks. It's another thing that I absolutely love. I'll share my screen again. Now he did ask Ben asked moving a section. All right. Now we're assuming that he's talking about splicing or cutting time session wide. But if you wanted to just move a section, if it's in a folder track, life just got a lot easier for you. So for example, come on, stop doing that. There we go. I'll go over here and let's say that this is a section, right? Now I'm not showing my folder track, right? The folder track is collapsed. I'm going to go ahead and copy, move over here, and paste. So you can actually work with the clips within your folder tracks without having to expand it. There's limitations, right? So using the trim tool or the grabber tool doesn't do what you think it's going to do, but regular cut, copy, and paste does, and that will give you some power that a lot of people are just unaware of in that kind of overview of the of a folder track.
It's like
that works for routing or basic folders.
It's like a universe view for just the folder, isn't it?
Yeah,
really
but
nice.
It's a universe view that you can do some things with. The universe view in Pro Tools is strictly for navigation. This is something you could, for example, if I wanted to go over here and cut this section out. You can do that. You can't do everything, but you can do some important things without having to open up, extensive folder tracks and deal with that.
Yeah, very, very cool. Okay, I think we'll leave that there today then. That's some awesome stuff. If you're liking what we're doing, hit like on the video. If you're liking what we're doing overall, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so you get notified every time we upload our latest videos. If you head over to protoolsanswers.com, you can subscribe over there. Well, Andy will send you an email every week to let you know what we're up to. And you can also subscribe to our Inner Circle working title over there as well, where we're going to be offering things like Masterclasses. You can join our close community of Pro Tools enthusiasts and stuff like that. It's a really nice little community that we're building over there. We're very, very lucky, Andy, aren't we?
Indeed.
Yeah, we are. So all leaves me to say is thank you very much to Andy.
You bet.
Thank you very much to Anders. And
he's in Doha again?
He's yes, back in Al Jazeera.
Wow.
Your fault, I think. It's your fault.
Yeah, I had something to do with it.
Yeah. We don't blame you at all.
You don't have to thank me.
My name's Dave. This is Pro Tools Answers, and we're out.